Hello, everyone. I would like to wish peace, mercy, and blessings of Prime Creator to you. Namaste, or that which is that aspect which is divine within me recognizes that aspect which is divine within you. Today, I would like to talk a little bit about the Pleiadian worldview and inconsistent worldviews. I think one of the crises is that any of us face as a being, especially in the 3D realm and especially here on our home of Gaia, is the great question of who am I? Where am I from? Where do I belong? What is my purpose? These are the questions rather than a question. And in particular, we'll be talking about the Pleiadian worldview and inconsistent worldviews that are out there. Surely those of us who have already heard about the Pleiadians, and those of us who know that we are Pleiadian starseeds, know that we are beings that believe in love and light and unconditional love to others. We believe that we need to try to increase the vibration of this planet by changing our frequency to one of love and unconditional forgiveness, and trying to employ understanding of other people, individuals, situations, and circumstances before making a judgment, so you can make an informed decision. And even then, once you make a judgment call or an informed decision, it's done in the best interest of all the parties and for the maximum benefit of good. So let's talk first a little bit about that word that I just used. You'll hear a lot of people say, for example, amongst the starseed community, and I've heard some people who feel that they are Pleiadian or have said that they are Pleiadian, will say, well, I don't like this word judgment. Well, once the person says that I don't like the word judgment, they've actually just made a judgment about the word judgment. You see, our 5 and many times our 6 senses as well are actually filled with judgment. I would encourage anybody who can, and as I am speaking to you and having this discussion to you in the English language and using English as a medium, to try to find out what the word judgment means. Because one of the things that's also happening is that we are losing our language in terms of we're losing symbols. So for example, and I'm going to get sidetracked here for a second, you might see the swasti, which is a sacred symbol to Hindus, and then it turns into a symbol of villainy amongst the Nazis. The Ankh, or the cross, is a sacred symbol to many, but it can be turned into a symbol that other people feel uncomfortable with. The Eye of Horus, for example, or the sun disk of Ra, can be seen as a symbol of something insightful and beautiful and spiritual, and a symbol of wisdom to many, and also be a cause of apprehension for many more. So likewise with language. So the word judgment, and coming back to that, your 5 and your 6 senses are filled with judgment. That is, you take in information and then you react to that. There is some stimuli, there's some reaction to that information. Every time you eat a food and you decide that this was pleasant or it was unpleasant, your taste buds have made a judgment. Every time you smell something, I prefer this cologne and not that one. I like the smell of this flower over that one. You've made a judgment. When you see a man or a woman or any object that is pleasing, and this one's kind of difficult for you to lie because they've actually done studies that show how the pupil will expand and dilate based upon that which it likes or does not like. So you make judgment there. I could play some music right now for all of you, and there's some of this music, it would resonate with you, like I really enjoy this music. And there are some people who would listen to this music and say, no, I don't actually enjoy this music at all. It doesn't resonate with me. So therefore, your auditory system is making a judgment in that sense. Similar when you touch an object, this is soft, this is warm, this is cold. It's information and how you are interpreting that information. So you might see someone who is wearing piercings or has a tattoo or has a different kind of hairstyle or different kind of clothing style, and you may say that this is not for me. That is a judgment. So we need to reclaim our language, because this word judgment has been turned into something that's very nasty, when actually It doesn't have to be. Judgment is a form of information and being able to distinguish and have criteria and using your five and six senses to filter things. The second thing that I would like to discuss about is because of a lot of the fact that a lot of people do not know who they are, where they came from, where they are, where they're going, they become people who uh, take bits and pieces of information from anything and everything. So this is how you'll get people who will ride the latest fads or they will ride the latest trends. And some people have this motto of, well, I just like to go with the flow. And for me, that depends. Because if the flow ends up taking me down the toilet, I would rather swim upstream with the salmon so that I can plant my seed for future generations. And those of you who reflect on what I just said, namaste to you, because you understand what I'm trying to put out there. Those of you who do not understand it, because I'm speaking on that frequency, I really don't know how else to convey that to you. Why would that be important? For me, in my experience, I find that many beings on this planet who have inconsistent worldviews, they end up in life later being very, very depressed, very distraught, very angry, and very bitter. Because the pieces inside of themselves, they do not add up. They don't match. They don't feel a sense of calm and wholeness and serenity within themselves because they have all these incompatible worldviews. Let's just give some examples, and especially for those who are familiar with the politics of left and right in the United States. In the United States, you'll have two major parties: the Republican Party, which is considered to be on the political right, or they might be considered to have what are called conservative worldviews. Then you'll have the Democratic Party, which is considered to be on the left and having what are considered to be liberal worldviews. So let's look at those two for a moment, and we can even see this when we are looking at statements made by politicians and their platforms. You have people on the political right who will say the current President Obama is a socialist and he's going to make America a socialist nation, and it's all about turning America into a welfare state, and he's a communist as well, and on and on and on. Interestingly enough, a lot of these people are the same people who close down factories and close down companies and close down corporations in the United States and ship them off to where? Guess where? To China, a socialist nation. So these people who tend to vote for the Republican Party and are quite upset with the platform of the Democrats are going to go and shut down a lot of the manufacturing base and send it to a socialist country, thereby actually supporting its platform, supporting its philosophy, supporting its economy, and supporting the expansion of its ideology. That right there is quite inconsistent for the people who are on the right. How about for people on the left? For example, you'll see amongst many people who are starseeds, or people who feel that they are starseeds, that they might have a tendency to be vegan and vegetarian, or a profound respect for life, so it would seem. Don't you dare pick up that crab, leave him alone. Don't you dare pick up that starfish, leave it alone. How dare you eat that hamburger? How could you do that? These chickens are living beings, and you're supporting an industry which causes a great deal of fear and severs the lives of these beings. And then you look at them and say, okay, what about abortion? How do you feel about that? Human life and the taking of a human life. And then these same people will say, well, that's that person's choice. Okay, so it's that person's choice whether or not they decide to abort a human fetus and cut off that connection of the soul. And you're at peace with that, but somehow you're not at peace with a person who of their own will and volition decide to eat a hamburger. That's not a very consistent platform. It's not a consistent philosophy to say that you have a great deal of respect and honor for life here, but when it comes to human life, you don't. Or this issue of overpopulation. I've heard that sometimes, that the world is overpopulating. This may seem true if you live in places which are saturated with people, like New York or Hong Kong or Singapore, but there are vast tracts of land in Canada, in the Russian Republic, and many places in this world where you could actually drive for hours on end and encounter very little civilization at all. So what's interesting is these people will now propose that we somehow need to reduce humans. And that does not appear to be a very doesn't seem to be a worldview that is consistent with what we believe as Pleiadians, which is that humanity comes first. And that doesn't mean then everything else be damned, the ecosystem, the environment. No. But what we need to talk about here is wisdom. If we're going to talk about a reduction in population, why not talk about the change of lifestyle? Because this really seems to be the issue. It isn't necessarily that we have too many people. The issue seems to be it's how they are living and the lifestyle that they choose to live. So it seems very odd and very curious that the people who say we need to reduce the population of the world don't have much to say about alternative energy and trying to find clean, efficient energy. They don't seem to say a lot about challenging coal and oil and steel. Or excuse me, not steel, coal and oil and gasoline. They just want to say, well, we need less humans. But if we are to introduce these alternative energies, and in particular what's called zero-point energy, humanity will become a star-faring species. That means we'll venture out into the stars. And that vast expanse of stars that we see out there is actually called what? Space. What's the word space mean? There's room. There's room to grow. There's room for expansion. You don't have to feel congestion or congested. It doesn't have to feel congested. So this is why whenever we take on these concepts and ideas, we need to think about them. We need to think about their origins. We need to think about what might motivate people to say the things that they do. Is there an agenda behind it? And there's another word that we need to reclaim again. Like the word agenda has taken on these dark undertones. In businesses all the time, they will say, let's set the agenda for this week. We're going to set the agenda for what we'll be doing for the next 6 months. It gives an itinerary, it gives a schedule, it gives a vision. So the word agenda doesn't necessarily have to have dark undertones. I personally have an agenda. Anybody who has any vested interest in humanity would have an agenda. So it's another word that we need to reclaim. Another thing that we need to look at is this issue of light and darkness. And you'll hear people, there's one man in particular, I guess I don't need to mention him because there are several people who hold on to this view, which is we've all been set up by this grand game, by this being called the demiurge. And so we've been suckered into serving either forces of darkness and giving our energies to that, or forces of false light. You know, religion, or even the New Age movement, or even, you know, the teachings from Pleiadians or other proclaimed species that are visiting humanity. So we've all been duped. And so these people are teaching that somehow they have some esoteric inside information, knowledge that others don't, and they're on the right track. And what's interesting about this is that ultimately what you'll see is that they're claiming that they rise above duality, and duality is a bad thing. And they're somehow on a third way. Their duality isn't actually a bad thing, and I don't know why people are teaching that. Things are known from their opposites. If every single day of your life was a beautiful day, would you really know what a beautiful day was and appreciate it as such? It's called contrast. Matter and antimatter, proton and antiprotons. You have uh, dark matter and light matter. For example, if you take a switch, a light switch is either on or off. What's option C? What is that point in which a light is neither on or off? What is that called? So people are teaching that this duality is somehow monstrous and awful and we have to rise above it. And then when you read carefully the things that they say, you find that they're caught up in the same kind of duality that they're accusing everyone else of. For example, the people who talk that we're duped into following a false light. Well, if a false light is a false light, then it's really no light at all. It's actually darkness masquerading as light. Now, isn't it? It would be like saying that someone is coming along and teaching you a false truth. That's an oxymoron. Like saying a married bachelor. It's an oxymoron. Because if there is a false truth, then that just means that it's a lie. In the same way, when people talk about this false light, then it's darkness masquerading as light. So these people aren't bringing anything new. This isn't the latest trend or fad. It's been around for a very, very long time. All the ancient traditions tell people about beware, be on guard, use judgment there. Use discrimination. There's another word that we can reclaim. You say the word discrimination, and people think of not allowing someone into a park or into a store based upon the color of their skin or their religion. The word to discriminate actually means to use discernment and judgment and find criteria to be able to differentiate between things. And it's come to have taken this idea that you bar other people. So it's another word that we can reclaim that doesn't necessarily have to be negative. So these people who are claiming that we need to rise above the light and rise above the darkness because there's only the real there's only the real light, and they're following the real light, and they don't really get into how they're doing that and how they've come to understand that. At the end of the day, it seems to be the latest promo and trying to push some kind of book or some video and something of that kind, and then to say, look, I'm a step ahead of the game because all these other quote-unquote people are just being duped, but I'm not. So you really need to use discernment and be cautious about that. Here's a big one. You don't see, and I'm willing to admit, because I haven't seen every single channeler, every single video done by channelers. I haven't seen all the information, but that which I've encountered, I have yet to see a single channeler. I've yet to see anybody from amongst our star brethren talk about the issue of moral relativity. There could be no issue greater than that. If you want to talk about entering into a galactic family, and you have people who don't believe in absolute truths, but all morality is just relative, then it kind of makes you wonder, why would you want to stand on a platform of love and light to begin with? For example, I have found that when I finally ask people who claim to be moral relativist, and I say, well, this must mean that rape is not wrong. Rape of women is not wrong. Rape of children is not wrong. And they'll exclaim, well, everyone knows that it's wrong. Well, not really, because you're a moral relativist. That means it's not necessarily wrong in and of itself. It's just an opinion. It's something that you personally don't find tasteful. But at the core, the energy behind it is not wrong. It's just a point of view amongst millions and billions of points of views. Now I'm saying to the listeners out there, whether you believe you're a starseed or not, whether you believe that you are Pleiadian or not. If you are going to stand against this uh, enemy that you believe is out there trying to bring the world down, whether you believe it's the Illuminati or the Cabal or the New World Order or whoever, whatever it is, and you believe that they have this very dark agenda and they really don't have humanity's interest in mind, then one thing that you need to ask yourself is, how would this issue of moral relativity feed into that? Why would they want to have a world in which morality is of a dubious nature? You ever notice how life gets quantified many times in the media? For example, an airplane uh, might go down in the ocean, and the people reporting on the news will say, "Yep, so there were 40 40 Canadians died, and there were like 100 Chinese people that died, and then there were 80 Germans and 2 Americans." As if the lives of the Americans was more tragic than the lives of the other people. Or people will get into quantifying death, that they killed 2,370 of ours, and we only killed 80 of theirs. So this is what it does. They start quantifying death, and the loss of any human being is very tragic and very grave. So a moral relativist will try to approach the situation that people come up from different cultures, having different viewpoints. Eating this food is considered right, and this food is considered wrong, and then this is taboo, and that's not. And that's something that I really need to dedicate an entire video for in the future and really break that down and show some of its intrinsic flaws. But it's something that I would encourage the viewers to look into, is the issue of moral relativity. That is it really wrong that we unleash a virus on this planet and wipe out anyone and everyone it comes in contact with? Is that really wrong that we do that? Is it really wrong that you steal? Is it really wrong that you lie? Is it really wrong that you do these things to people? And then if you say, well, it depends on the situation, then you also have to ask, if it comes down to it, then does it depend upon the situation that you rape someone, you murder someone? And we're not talking about self-defense, we're talking about out-and-out murder. Then it becomes, what happens with the moral relativist, and one of the people that end up taking it to its logical conclusion was a philosopher by the name of Nietzsche. And for those who don't know, Nietzsche ended up killing himself because he took it to its dark logical conclusion of its philosophy, which was a world without any morality and anything and everything goes, and it really has no purpose or meaning at the end of the day. So when you get down and out and your energy is low and your vibration is low and your frequency is low and you're inundated with this kind of philosophy, why not just go in there and take the pills and down it with a bottle of Jack and Coke? Because at the end of the day, you know what does it really matter? I'm just some space debris floating aimlessly through the universe. I don't really have any purpose per se. I just, it's all very meaningless. Now, this is the kind of thing that happens from these kind of philosophies and worldviews. To actually be a starseed is to live a purposeful life, to have a life of purpose and meaning, to know who you are and why you're here and where you're going, to have a strong sense of conviction in your mission and that assistance in helping other people. And you know what? This is not a job for the faint of heart. That's not why people volunteered to come here to this planet, to rectify the wrongs that were done. It took people of really strong heart and conviction. And some of you out there are going through some really serious challenges. But you need not to burden yourself more with these inconsistent and needless worldviews that end up filling your heart with conflict and filling your mind with conflict and putting your spirit with weighing it down with these dark worldviews that really are actually charged with dark energies. To be a starseed, in particular, and I'm speaking to because it's titled Pleiadian Worldview, to the Pleiadians, is to know who you are. Now, how do you know, for example, and I should touch on this, that you are even a Pleiadian? There are three ways of knowing this. One, and this is rare, but it does happen, and that is direct contact with those of our brothers and sisters from the Pleiades. Number two, the other way of knowing is when you're having these messages, and I like to think of it as a sort of cosmic webway or a cosmic internet. A lot of people will get intense ringing in the ears, intense headaches. Sometimes they feel that it only dissipates by vomiting, and these things will actually occur in frequency the more you're around electrical equipment. That's what I've found and seen, and when I've collated the data from people who are talking about this. And that is to try to remove yourself away from that and try to find a place that's serene and quiet and see what's trying to be communicated to you. These people end up becoming what we call channelers. And number three is through the dream world or the dream state, where you go into REM, rapid eye movement, and you are actually your soul travels into different planes. And when you have the same reoccurrent dreams over and over and over again, these are three of the ways, and there may be more, and I'm also open to learning that myself, but those are the three that I would be familiar with knowing. And then, of course, to answer the question, well, how do you know? There would be Pleiadian in particular. Well, the beings that you would meet would give you strong indicators that they are by giving you symbols and pictures which are associated with Pleiades and the Pleiadians. In the same way, during channeling, they'll just flat out tell you. And then the third way in the dream state as well, pictures, images, or just telling you directly that we are Pleiadian or from the Pleiades. And these are things that are a knowing that you have within. And it's also beautiful to see these stories and information confirmed by people you've absolutely had no contact with from disparate places from the world. And they come together and they've had no contact or information with one another. And interestingly enough, too, in Leah Alien Tribes Pleiadians group on Facebook, you will see so many people that will come into there who they just didn't know anything about the Pleiadians. And they said, look, I've been having these dreams, I've been having these visions, and I'm here for some information, what's going on. And I think that it's very important for anybody out there who comes in contact with those people to make sure that they get the due attention needed, because they're wanting to be orientated. They're looking for that sense of direction, and I think that to ignore them would be very unfortunate, because I think these are the people that end up blossoming and doing a great deal of good and service to the community and for others. So I'll try not to keep this broadcast very long today, because I'm pretty sure there are other people from Pleiadian Express that may have something on today as well. So thank you so much for listening. Please do give some thoughts to that, to the, and at the end of the day, you ask yourself that question, am I holding inconsistent thoughts and inconsistent worldviews within myself? Yeah, I can't close without saying two other things. Number one, ultimately, if I'm saying something right now that resonates with you, and this is what I found is interesting, it's not that you're actually resonating with something that I say. I'm only reminding you of something that is inside of you. And let's go even deeper than that. It's not even something that's from you or me. It's just that we are actually vibrating on a same frequency that may be shared between the two of us and thousands and countless millions more like us. So that's what that is. And if you find, you know what, I'm not in resonance with this, then that's because you're on a different frequency. That's what it ultimately comes down to. When you find out that through these three methods, ultimately at the end of the day, only you can say and know who you are. Don't get into this people telling you, like, for $249, I'll tell you if you're a Pleiadian or not. I just think you need to really be careful of that. It's too easy to do these kind of websites. I'll give you an example. I could do it now, right off the top of my head. I have a website. It's going to be called Pleiadians United, okay? And then my first question, wow, it's the one that you want to know. Am I Pleiadian? You click on it. And then I say, do you feel distraught, isolated, a feeling of loneliness, like you don't belong? Are you artistic, intuitive, insightful? Do you sometimes have mood swings up and down? You feel very happy and giddy one moment and very sad and depressed the next. Then these are telltale signs that you're a Pleiadian. So, you read through this very general information and you're like, my God, they're right. I'm a Pleiadian. So this stuff, I would really be cautious of that. Something else that just came to my mind is that for those of us who know that we are Pleiadian, and those of us who identify or resonate with much of the Pleiadian teachings and say, look, I may not know whether I'm a Pleiadian or not, but I just know that these teachings are really awesome and really beautiful and they resonate in my heart. I want to share with you that anybody who's telling you that they come from Alcyon or Tegada, Electra, any of the 7 stars that are seen to Earth, those are stars. They're suns. They're burning with an intense light. Nobody lives there. No one has ever lived there. Pleiadians come from planets in the Pleiades, and those that are actually communicating with us from the future have evolved into other dimensional states, as well as those that are on our timeline now. So they can exist in different dimensional states. But to say that someone actually inhabits or is from this particular star, unless they're speaking in some kind of metaphorical way that hopefully they would indulge you further, you have to take that with a pinch of salt. Also, for those out there who are listening, and some of your friends have said, you know what, that's ridiculous. These stars are only evolved several 100 million years. They couldn't possibly even sustain life in the Pleiades star system. There are no planets that are sustainable for life, or they couldn't have. Or we're not saying that there are no planets that are sustainable for it. It's just that they couldn't have developed to this point. Number one, those people who are usually saying that, I would encourage each and every one of you who can, just do a Google search, Mozilla Firefox, Safari, or whatever it is, and just see how scientists themselves on Earth try to measure the birth, excuse me, not the birth, but the lifespan of stars. And you'll see that there's a great deal of debate on this very subject. And number two, those people who are saying that often actually use Earth as the measuring stick for telling whether or not that there are life on other planets. And this is problematic because if the dinosaurs were left to be, so to speak, and there was no asteroid that came and interrupted things for them, they most likely would be the ones who would be the ascended species on Earth and not mammals. So there are other elements out there in the galaxy and the universe that are not on the periodic table of the elements. There are other things that we don't know about or interact with. So it's quite a waste of good scientific imagination and good scientific thought process to use Earth as the measuring stick to determine whether or not there are life on other planets out there. So that is something that I would like to say. Thank you all for listening. If anything that I said was true and again resonates with you, it is simply because we are on the same frequency. If it is not something that resonates with you, then we are not on the same frequency. Nonetheless, to all of you, the listeners, infinite and unconditional love to you. Namaste. Thank you.